as always, I got my co-host with me, Max Briggs. Max, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm ready to get this shit on the way.
Unfortunately, today Keith had that real life job thing that we've been telling him to quit and just come do this podcast with us all the time, but he refuses to do that. So hopefully he'll be back with us next episode. Anyhow, we got two special guests for you today. First, we'd like to welcome back Jerry Hayes. Jerry, welcome back, buddy.
Morning, fellas. How you doing?
Doing
Good.
good. And we have a new guest for you this time also. He's he's a big Bears fan. I'll let him tell you the rest of his teams, but Dave Vogel. Dave, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on. Been a Bears and Cubs fan my whole life. Growing up in Chicago, just watching the same teams. My dad watched. Then I started going to college at Michigan State, and inevitably became a Michigan State football and basketball fan. And I also follow a little bit of Ireland rugby because of the player Brian O'Driscoll, the Ireland legend.
Okay, yeah, I can get down with your teams as long as you're not a fan of any of those Ohio teams. Especially that team in Columbus, but we'll get to that another time. Let's start off with some NBA talk today, fellas. And specifically, let's talk about the fad that's just taking over the NBA, the baby goat, Luka Doncic. I mean, the guy is basically almost anytime you look at his stat line, you can almost expect a triple double. Jerry, I'll start off with you. I mean, basically, did you expect Luka to be this good at this point, and what do you see for him going forward?
At this point in his career, I didn't see him being this good. I did think he was going to be the best player out of his draft class. A lot of people were. There was a lot of doubts from him just for the fact that he's a international player. And a lot of times you don't see those international players translate very well over to the NBA. So that was an issue with a lot of people coming over initially. But I saw past that because he was just a fantastic player. He was dominating the, I believe it was it Barcelona? It was over in the League of Barcelona, I believe it was. He was dominating that as a 17-year-old, and he won the MVP over there. It's at 17, and you just don't ever see that happen. So I expected him to get to the point where he's at right now, where he's in the NBA MVP talks, but not this young. I thought it'd be a couple of years before we saw it, but he's definitely he's definitely further past where I expected him to be, and having Porzingis there really helps him as well, having a nice 1-2 punch in those two.
Yeah, I mean because I heard the fad of and about him and what he's done up to before he got to the NBA, but like you said, I never expected him to be this good this fast. Max, give me your thoughts on Luca.
Well, I mean, like you guys have both said, it's surprising to see the development this far. It's actually really entertaining to watch because essentially what we've had is, certain guys dominate the league for so many years, and now we're at a point where a lot of these new guys are starting to pop into the league, and some of them are fizzling out pretty quick. It just seems like the college game translating into the NBA isn't really preparing them, and this guy coming from overseas, getting to play in some big time games and in those overseas leagues, and then coming into the NBA and just kind of showing out. I mean, just looking at his stats, I mean, he's averaging 32 minutes a game. I mean, he's got, let's see, his field goal percentage is at a 472. He's making damn good amount. I mean, his threes are down at 3.25, but he's getting to the line. He's making contact. He knows how to handle the ball, and he's not the smallest of these guys either. I mean, what is his height? He's 6'8", right?
6'7".
6'7". So seeing a guy like him move around the court the way that he does, and he's not afraid to go interior with it, and he's not afraid to shoot the three. He doesn't back down from anyone, which is kind of fun to watch. I mean, he brings in a new breath of fresh air into the game, and seeing a kid like that come in and do that in an NBA full of vets, going up against LeBron, going up against Harden, Westbrook, all those guys, and seeing him just perform, it's quite astonishing to see it in his halfway through his second year. That's kind of where it's just kind of interesting to watch, and it definitely has made me watch more NBA than I have in a long time. So there's that with that.
And I guess another point I want to pull out is the fact that would y'all say that it shows also that an NBA player doesn't need to go to the college system to basically be successful, like a lot of people have said in the past decade, that and that's the reason that a lot of them were advocates for the one and done rule.
Well, yeah, exactly. So what I don't think I said it well enough, but like I was saying earlier, it seems like these guys coming from college playing 1, 2, 3, or even all 4 years, it doesn't seem like their game is translating well enough into the NBA. And to see a guy like this that has pretty much gone over or been overseas the entire time and then gets drafted to an NBA team and comes into the league and just dominates because he actually gets to play against essentially professionals overseas, and then he gets to come into the NBA to be battle tested essentially. So you take away the one and done rule, you take away, these guys going to college full time and then trying to translate into the league and just let them go play in the G League. I think that could be a testament to building up a better product in the NBA and more competitiveness with all their players. Because essentially you're learning one style of play in college basketball. The distance for 3-point shooting is different. The style and pace of play, the overall makeup of the entire game is completely different than the way it's set up in the NBA. So you take that out of it and don't teach these guys NBA or college play and just have them go into like NBA style rules, play, and all that stuff. I think it could be. I think Luka Doncic is a testament to that being a beneficial factor for players coming into the league.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like Max mentioned, the difference in style of play between the way college game is played and the way the NBA game is played is just so different. It's like in college they focus on a lot of the in and out stuff. So like you'll see a lot of big men work down low and then go out, and you don't really see a whole lot of teams that are great 3-point shooting teams. And then you get to the NBA where the focus on it nowadays is you have to be a good 3-point shooter if you really want to succeed in the league. You gotta be able to shoot the ball if you want to be able to succeed. That's where a lot of the drawback comes, because a lot of those college guys, it's like they just teach them how to play their system. They don't really teach them how to get an effective jump shot. You see a lot of guys come into the league with like a broken jump shot. I mean, look at like Lonzo, whenever he came in, his jump shot, it was beyond broken. And the fact that the Pelicans and Lakers have been able to somewhat resurrect his jump shot from the time he's come into his league and make it at least somewhat serviceable now is a huge it's just a huge determining factor. And I think, like Max mentioned, if you can get like the G League going and get that to be an effective element to where a lot of these really good college players that just go one and done in the college ranks, if they can just get in the G League and prepare with coaches who have worked with NBA, who've worked directly with the NBA coaches, I think it would do testament for their development.
Well, you brought up Lonzo. What about like Markelle Fultz and guys like that?
Yeah.
You look at different players that came from like Kansas, Kentucky, or Duke, and they don't translate well, and it takes them 4, 5, 6 years to even get to a spot where they're putting up good minutes in the NBA and actually producing at a pretty decent clip, but in limited minutes. So, it's hard to say right now what it will actually do, but looking at a guy like Doncic, honestly, that he's like the best test subject for it as of right now.
Dave, got any thoughts that you want to share?
I kind of think that the NBA, like going overseas has actually, like, shown to, like, kind of work longer than people give it credit for. I mean, because so many people went to college, but like, the Gasols were products from Europe. even like someone like Brandon Jennings. I mean, he wasn't great, but he went overseas for a year rather than going to college, and he had some productive years. And then you also have like people who go to college and make a mockery of the system, like Ben Simmons. Like he wasn't even eligible for the NCAA tournament when he was there. I do agree that Luka will help. I don't want to say help, but there will be a benefit to Luka with more people going overseas.
Would you say it'd be fair to say that it reinforces the case that it benefits them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's dive into some college basketball talk now. And Max, I'll let you take over here.
Well, essentially, we're getting about halfway through the college basketball season. We're firmly into the college conference play between all the different conferences, and we've got a pretty good look at what teams are and what teams aren't producing well right now. And let me pull up the top 25 right now.
I was doing the exact same thing.
Let me pull it up. AP top 25 right now.
You gotta love our dedication to stats around here.
Yeah, so right now we've got Gonzaga, Duke, Kansas, Baylor, and Auburn rounding out the top 25 right now.
Top five.
Or top five in the top 25. And then just behind them, we've got Butler, San Diego State, Michigan State, Oregon, and Florida State to round out the top 10. Are there any big surprises for you guys as far as any one of those guys in the top 10 right now?
Oh, just right there, you got San Diego State. That's very shocking to me. You got Butler. They've been a good. I remember when Stevens was there back in the early 2010s. They were good then. I didn't really follow them much after he left. I feel like they had fallen off a little bit, and now they're 14-1 right now. And then those two are just the most shocking to me. It's like you don't have any like power. Those two aren't power conferences or anything like that. So seeing some lesser schools, and a little bit further down, you get like Dayton. They always seem to be a somewhat good school.
Yeah.
Wichita State's rounding out towards the bottom of the top 25 as well at 23. I've been a fan of Greg Marshall there for a while. I think he's a very good coach. I think it's good on Wichita State part. They haven't allowed any bigger name schools to really snatch him up so far.
Well, I'm surprised he hasn't gone to the NBA yet, considering what he's done with Wichita State and how much of a power school that they've been in college basketball for like the last damn near 15 years. It feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, they've made their runs to the Final Four. They've made I mean, what he's done there is just phenomenal, considering how small of a school that truly is and where it's located at. I mean, who would have thought a school from Wichita would be consistently ranked in the top 25 over the last 15 years?
I don't think anyone really would have thought it.
Yeah, most people probably don't even know that there was a college named Wichita State unless it was in relation to watching their basketball program. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, just in the top 10 alone, we've only got 3 blue blood schools in there. I mean, with Duke, Kansas, and Michigan State, which is kind of surprising. You would think that Kentucky would be always up there at the top. Even like Villanova and West Virginia and Michigan, you would think that all those guys would be up toward in the top 10, but they're not. This year's actually been quite a weird year for college basketball. I think we've had 7 new number ones since the season started. I think it was originally Duke that started off as number 1, and then they lost. Kansas then took over that. They lost a couple times. Gonzaga's theirs now.
Michigan State was one, either the first or second team too. They had they were one and lost. Was it Kansas the first game?
Yeah, I believe that was what that was the Maui Invitational, or was that the?
I think it was the Jimmy V Classic.
Yeah, the Jimmy V Classic. Yeah, that. So this year's just been weird. I mean, I just saw a score earlier that Maryland, the 12th ranked team, lost, I believe, like 69-46 to Iowa. I mean, college basketball this year is just absolutely weird, and it doesn't seem like it has as big a star power in it. And it seems like everything else is up for grabs as far as, the top 5, top 10 teams. I mean, yeah, you still got Kansas up there, and I think that's a testament to just Bill Self, because it feels like outside of a certain couple of players, they're kind of a no-name, kind of mid-tier level kind of talent right now for their team. I mean, Dotson's good. I mean, he's in his third year, and you've got Udoka Azubuike, like the top big man in all of basketball right now, with his 80% field goal percentage, which that's where he's constantly at. But outside of that, you can't really name any of they're not household names like it used to be on Kansas. Duke's got their one and done problem. So they're always going to have these growing pains throughout the year. But when it comes tournament time, they kind of start to put it together a little bit. Outside of that,
or they completely flopped, one or the other.
Well, and that's the same way it is with Kansas and some of these other schools. I think a lot of that goes back to our conversation about the one and dones and how it really just hampers schools instead of it helps build a good program for 4 years and continues the building throughout, even more time, because you definitely get the overlap with players where you'll have a guy, 2 or 3 guys there that are, 4-year starters, and then you've got a couple sophomores and juniors, and it just continues the legacy on and on and on, and you can continue to build the program. But now it seems like you have to start fresh every year, damn near. And I think it's definitely kind of evening the playing field for these different schools that are returning starters every single year and building, winning mentality and building a certain kind of philosophy within that program. So what are you thinking, Eric?
What I want to ask you all is basically, what are your thoughts on who's exactly the power conference this year in college basketball, in your opinion?
The power conference?
Yeah.
I'm biased, and I'm always going to say the Big 12.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm biased, and I'm always going to say the Big 10.
Yeah, and I understand that. It seems like college basketball has always kind of got like 3 power conferences. You got the ACC, you've got the Big 10, and you've got the Big 12 that always constantly turn out, top teams. And
I mean, if we're gonna talk power, like it's one of those 3 because they're the only like big conferences with a team in the top 10. I guess you want to say Oregon in the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I'm not.
You got Auburn in the SEC as well if you want to.
Yeah.
If you really want to make that argument with Oregon in the Pac-12.
Right, but I mean, if you go down, you consistently see more ACC, Big 12, and Big 10.
Yeah.
Not over, where's the next SEC team? Kentucky. Okay, I guess Kentucky at 14 is the only other one. The Big 10 has 2 or 3, 4. Is Purdue up there? No, so they have 3. And then the Big 12 and the ACC have 1 sprinkled in there. It's, they want to say like the Power 5, but it really in basketball it's a Power 3.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 Big 12 teams.
Yeah, 4 Big 12, and then I think I counted 4 ACC or 3.
Yeah, and I think I see 4 Big 10. Yeah, 4 Big 10.
Yep. So it seems like the balance of power is there's 3 power conferences, but here's another thing. Do you guys think it's surprising not to see North Carolina in the top 25?
100%.
I actually, I'm gonna say no, actually, because every few years Roy has a year like this. Like traditionally, you see UNC there, but there's just a cycle. Like it wasn't too long ago. I think they actually won the championship the year after that. But like they were in the NIT. Like it's just a cycle that repeats itself. Like I expect to see them there, but it doesn't surprise me when they're not.
Yeah.
The reason I find it so surprising is just looking at the recruiting class last year. They got Armando Bacot, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, 5-star center. Cole Anthony, top 3 pick in the NBA draft. Anthony Harris, Jeremiah Francis. They got some good recruits in the last recruiting class.
Well, I agree with you there. There was a year that Kentucky didn't make the NCAA tournament and still had multiple top 10 picks from their recruiting class.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, here's a little fun fact: the University of Missouri has a better record in basketball right now than UNC,
which is surprising. That is,
yes.
Oh my God.
Well, Missouri's just a powerhouse in basketball, right, Jerry?
I mean, obviously.
Come back to the Big 12 and we'll test that theory.
Hey, maybe they'd actually win the Big 12 again, like they did in 2012 when they left.
Oh, you hush your mouth, son.
They went out winners.
Yeah, they went out winners and then left in the middle of the night, and I'm still salty about that one.
So wait, did they pull the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, essentially that's what they did. Essentially, here's how it went down. Missouri goes, no, we're not leaving. We love the Big 12. We love everyone here. We're here for the long haul. And then the SEC's like, come join us. And Missouri's like, deuces, fuckers. And then they just left. And I have a spot in my heart that's missing them so much because I love beating them so much in basketball.
In other words, the University of Missouri waffle stomped Max's heart.
There you go, Jerry. You got it in this week.
God damn it, Jerry. Don't! I will break the belt out, son.
Oh my!
That's a $500,000 fine, Max.
I don't care. I don't care.
Richard will pay it.
All right, my last question, I guess, with this is, what do you guys have on the chances of Virginia being able to repeat this year?
Slim to none.
So their coach had his first good year in the tournament in like ever. Like he kind of had to show up after being the first number 1 school to lose to 16. Like he is who he is. I don't. They're sitting at the 16 halfway through the year, and when usually you see, right, say not. Where is Virginia? Sorry. 18. Sorry, I was looking at Villanova. I can't read, apparently. But who's surprised there?
No one.
Right. They're sitting at 18 halfway through the year when they're usually, at this point, at worst, top 10. He's going to be who they are and have another early round exit.
Yeah, I mean, the farthest I see him getting is maybe the Sweet 16, but I don't think I don't think they have a chance to really get Final Four, Elite 8 range this year.
So y'all saying that there's basically almost no chance Virginia gets on my list this year?
Correct.
Well, they'll still be on your list because they're Virginia, but like they're not like they did it as a 1 seed. Even when they're a 1 seed, they usually have a big exit. What are they looking at right now? At best, like a 3 or 4 seed. That'd be like that's what I'm thinking. Like a 4 seed, like. That's a tough road to do it pending a bunch of upsets, but those upsets will come up with momentum too. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I don't see them doing anything in the tournament worth noting. I mean, honestly, this year is wide open, and I think there's a multitude of teams that could really just go through and waffle stomp the competition, but.
You're late.
I know, but Jerry and I have a bet on how many times I can actually work that in. So waffle stomping will be brought up quite a bit.
Does that one right there count?
Yes.
No.
Yes, it does.
Nope, I'm not counting it.
Damn it, Jerry. You hush your mouth. No. So,
all right.
Don't make him waffle stomp you.
Oh, shit. Everybody's getting on the waffle stomp train. Okay. So... back to what I was saying. I think there's going to be one team out there that we're going to be surprised by, and just looking at the top 25 right now, it wouldn't be surprising to see like a team like San Diego State run the table, or a team like, Butler, or even Louisville. I mean, Villanova is constantly, pushing for glory. I mean, this year, I don't see a team like Virginia trying to go in and win the whole thing. I just don't see it. I think Kansas can put together a good solid run, especially because they have Udoka Azubuike down there protecting the paint and shooting pretty much lights out. I mean, the guy's setting NCAA records left and right for every time he shoots the ball, and I don't see any team like Virginia going through and winning the whole thing. But I do believe it's up for grabs. I don't think any teams really pulled ahead and said, you know what, we're going to dominate all of college basketball this year and then go in and dominate the tournament. I just don't see it happening.
The only thing I disagree with you on is that Cassius Winston's about to run through and win it for his late brother. But also, how often does the team that dominate in the regular season make a run like that in March Madness, though?
It's very uncharacteristic. There's only a couple teams that are like that. I mean, I think Duke put together one of those years. I think North Carolina put together one of those years.
I think Kentucky put one together one year as well.
Yeah, but we're talking like three teams in what, a 15-year period?
Well, yeah, and then Kansas did it back in 2008, where they just completely decimated everyone.
Okay, I was going to say 28-year period, but like I keep on forgetting that 2000 was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are some teams. I think it comes down to the blue bloods that typically do it, not just a random school. And this year, the blue bloods aren't really just dominating all of college basketball. So I think it's kind of up for grabs for these smaller schools to go out there and make a run like Wichita State did back in the quite a few times. So it's kind of up in the air at this point.
Well, I mean, not only are blue bloods not dominating this year, like nobody's dominating this year. It's completely up for grabs, because like it's pretty, like the wealth is pretty spread out. Even like a school like, just looking at here, like Arizona, who's like traditionally a good school. Even given everything that's happened with them, like, would anyone really be surprised them sitting at 24 made a run? Maybe because of what they've gone through, but like in reality, they're a bigger school, bigger conference, but no one would really be that surprised if a school like that made a run.
Yeah, sure. I don't think it would be surprising for anybody in the top 25 right now, but I think you can eliminate a couple. But right. This year it's pretty much anybody's championship to win. So it's going to be an interesting March, to say the very least.
University Maryland, Baltimore County got it this year.
They just lost big time to Iowa.
Baltimore County, the team that beat Virginia.
Oh, UMBC. I'm thinking. I thought you were just. Never mind. It's early and I haven't had enough whiskey yet.
I'm about to say, take another drink, Max.
Fine.
Jerry.
Chug.
Jerry, who is a player that you would say that isn't really particularly on the radar yet, but you would have as a guy that you would recommend that someone would definitely watch just for the entertainment of watching him play in college basketball?
College basketball. That one is a little tough just because there is a whole bunch of players just throughout the country. The main areas where I like to look is a lot of like that where like Gonzaga and them play. Look at some of the smaller schools. Dayton, they're a fun team to watch that I've seen. Just them as a whole. As far as one specific player, it's a little hard to narrow down. I don't want to see.
I'll give you my guy right now. One guy that I particularly go to keep an eye on is, from on a team that basically isn't doing much, but he's just exciting to watch. He's from Alabama, John Petty Jr. I mean, the reason he caught my eyes, I was watching the game last year. I think it was Alabama and Tennessee on a Saturday, and I was getting ready to go somewhere. But while waiting for the fiance to get ready, I was just catching the game, and all of a sudden, this kid was just catching my eyes. Like, he was knocking down 3 after 3 after 3 after 3, and I was like, oh, snap. This kid might be he actually might be some good. So I went through it. I checked out some more of his games, and he had his high spots and low spots last year. But it seems like this year, he's had more high spots than low spots this year. Like for instance, right now he's not shooting a lot of them, but he's shooting 50% from behind the 3-point line. So, oh no, excuse me,
You said the kid's at Alabama.
Yeah, he's shooting 50. Yeah, shooting 50% behind the 3-point line, 75% free throw shooter. I mean, he needs to cut down a little bit on those turnovers and get a few more assists because his assist turnover ratio isn't where you'd want it to be. But I mean, he's an exciting kid to watch.
That's a similar reason why I fell in love with Colin Sexton his year at Alabama. Like there was a game I was watching. I don't know why I was watching Alabama basketball, but like the majority of his team was just like injured, fouled out or something, and he was basically playing a team 5-on-3, and he put his heart on the line for it. Alabama just always has like one player like that.
I was about to say, if you mentioned that game Alabama beat Virginia Tech in the NCAA tournament, I'd have to throw you off the show.
I know better than that.
That's still a sore spot. I think
I didn't mention it. You did.
I think I saw that game actually on television. What was it? I think it was on something I called it across it. No, it was a highlight clip on Facebook, basically flashing back to that game and closed Facebook. I wanted to throw the computer, take a sledgehammer to it, but unfortunately, it's not my computer, so I couldn't do that. But
see, if you're looking for the most
you could, but there'd be repercussions.
Yeah, and I don't feel like paying those repercussions out of my check. So
yeah, if you're looking for the most interesting name in college basketball, it resides at UConn. His name is Akok Akai. He was a recruit last year.
Did you just randomly find him right now, or did you know?
No, I found it. I'm like, what on earth? So I found that, and I'm like, that is the greatest name ever. So I'm instantly a fan of him now.
Let me have a little homerism right now, but if like just seeing how Cassius Winston has come on as late after his brother has been really exciting to watch. I'm not gonna say he's the most exciting player in college basketball because I don't think he is. But just seeing how he just puts his heart on the court, and you can see that that he's like kind of doing it for his brother, and that's been fun to watch.
I'm gonna
MLB. Oh, go ahead, Max.
I'm gonna go with one of my. I'm gonna go homerism with it, and I'm gonna just say Devon Dotson is going to be an interesting person to watch this year. His 3-point percentage is okay, but he for some reason, for a guy that's 6'2", he really just explodes to the hoop and does a lot of phenomenal acrobatic things trying to get the ball in the bucket and going up against guys that are 7 feet tall and just maneuvering around them like they're walking through molasses or something like that. So I think that's a guy to watch this year on my end, other than Udoka Azubuike, who is shooting an 80% clip from the field, which I believe will break Shaq's record and blow it out of the water for a single season of college basketball.
Well, that's impressive if you can blow Shaq's record out the water. But let's move from shooting hoops to hitting big flies, and let's go talk some ML. But let's talk about the hot stove tarp at the time of the year, and specifically trade rumors. There's talks of Arenado possibly moving, Betts possibly moving, and Jerry. If let's say Nolan Arenado or Mookie Betts, first of all, even gets traded, where would you possibly see as some destinations that they could go?
So the two main names I've heard for each guy is the one for Arenado. A whole bunch of Cardinals fans are making a whole lot of hoopla, thinking they have a chance to get him, especially after the Liberatore trade the other day, where they traded Jose Martinez for him. They think they could potentially package him back, which would be very interesting for Colorado to get a prospect of Liberators caliber back. And there's a lot of talk about Betts potentially going to the Dodgers next offseason anyway. So there's been obviously talks about him getting traded there just so they can get him on board and get a contract signed this season. Those are the two main ones I've heard for each guy. The Arenado one, it's really cooled off here as late, and it was reported like a month or so ago that it's unlikely he moves, but he's still being discussed. I think Betts is a lot more of a possibility he gets moved, especially now that they've settled on I think it was $27 million 1-year deal the other day.
Yep, 27.
So now that they've got, that locked up, the Red Sox can start shopping him and potentially get a deal done before spring training breaks here in the next month or so if they really wanted to.
I need to hire an agent to negotiate my contracts.
I'm pretty sure Betts' agent is Boraz, so.
Yeah, let me
rephrase that. I need to hire Boris.
Look, you'll take your $20 an episode in beer and be happy with it, okay?
Wait, we get paid to do this?
Damn it, Dave. Now you maybe the secret's up. Damn it all. You're supposed to tell that.
No.
He's a guest. I'm a co-host. I better get like $22 an episode.
He'll just pay you whiskey.
Okay, that's fine.
He doesn't actually pay my alcohol. He only pays for the 10% deposit.
We don't have that here in Missouri.
But I'm guessing Dave, as a Cubs fan, Chris Bryant's the big one for y'all, and if he gets dealt this year, where do you see him going, and what possibly could you get back for him?
I honestly don't see us trading him. I think we should trade him, and that we could get some. Because this is a very expensive core that hasn't shown out the last couple of years. Granted, with the Ross hire, he's obviously been there with them, so I think he'll be able to connect better with these players that that he won a championship better than Madden did. Granted, I love Joe Madden and still pissed that we got rid of him, but I think in that aspect, the Ross hire will be good. But I just don't see us and another team agreeing on what the value would be, and plus the 1 year deals like this are just a little complicated to get value for your players when they're like, oh, he's going to be a free agent. Why should I give out these prospects for 1 year?
Right. Now, since you mentioned the Ross hire and Madden being let go, do you feel like the Rose hire was more of he's a figure amongst Cubs fans that would be accepted? So instead of hiring anyone else, they hired him? Or do you feel like they actually believe that he's the best man to lead this team forward for the job?
I think if they just wanted a name that people would be okay to just fill in the role, just a name, Joe Girardi would have been the hire, and it wouldn't even be close. Just given his track record and how beloved he was as a Cub,
right,
for being a very, very similar type player as David Ross was. I think I'm not going to say David Ross is necessarily the right guy for the job, but I think the fact that he's been here with these guys and has a relationship with them already and can connect with them has a lot to do with it. And at first, I kind of thought, oh, Theo is just hiring a yes man. He's just going to hear my analytics. This is what you're doing. But, I mean, obviously, there's a story Theo told. But Theo told a story at his press conference about when they were in Boston and they had a young player, young pitcher, and Theo wasn't a huge fan of how he was calling the game. And so he goes to Ross. It's like, hey, this is what the analytics say. And David Ross, essentially being a backup catcher, you figure he would be like, oh, I didn't see it that way, Theo. Let me work on that. But instead, Ross Ross was like, well, have you looked at it this way? And like bring up his points of from the player's perspective behind the plate. And apparently Theo was taken aback by it. But I mean, I think Ross was a good plan B for me. I wanted Girardi, but I also wanted Girardi as my manager before he was even the Marlins manager.
Damn, I was hoping you'd take that story to the point where Ross would tell Theo to shove his analytics up his ass, but
Well, I mean, more or less, that's what he did. But obviously, I'm just retelling it how they told it, and Ross kind of laughed about it. But basically, the story was basically, "Shut the fuck up, Theo."
all right. The off season in general, Jerry. The last couple of years, it seems like it's been quiet during late December and into January. What are your thoughts on that?
So a lot of it, excluding this year, seemed to be a lot more. There seemed to be a lot more just moving parts. In the past, a lot of times the teams have blamed the agents have blamed the teams. I think more of the blame falls on the teams because they think if they wait long enough, the price on those premium players will drive down and they can get them right before like spring training at a much lower cost. Like look at the Phillies last year, they waited on Bryce Harper. They still ended up paying him, what was it, $330 million, something like that. And that's probably what we have gotten towards the beginning of the offseason. I think teams have finally just realized that waiting on these players, it doesn't change a difference on how much you're paying for them.
Exactly, especially with the point where if they realize, look, I'm a hot commodity, and the more you make me wait, actually, the more it's going to drive the price up because. But
You give other teams a chance to hop in on the
Well,
bidding.
not only that, but you take into consideration the fact that if you're waiting almost into spring training or waiting into spring training to sign some of these players, it affects their performance going into the season. I think it was Kendrys Morales like 4 or 5 years ago. He got signed at the end of spring training or the beginning of the season finally, and he had one of the worst seasons ever that he's ever had, and that it clearly correlated to the fact that he wasn't able to go into spring training and work on his game and also develop chemistry with his teammates. I mean, baseball, you may think it's just a guy up there with a stick in his hands trying to hit against a pitcher. A lot of it is getting muscle memory back, building up the stamina and ability, and seeing that ball come out of that pitcher's hand. I mean, when it comes to hitting, you need that extra time in spring training to build up and get ready for the season. And, teams aren't allowing that to happen to certain players. I mean, look at what happened to Mike Moustakas over the last couple of years, where teams would wait him out, and finally sign him right at about spring training time and give him a 1 year, like $15 million deal when he really deserved, a 5 year, $100 million deal. And he went through 2 off seasons where he didn't get a contract for more than 1 or 2 years. And he finally got his payday this offseason for a 3 or 4 year, $75 million contract, which is just
4 years, 64 base.
4 years, 64 base with a bunch of performance escalators if he does, hits X amount of home runs and gets an all-star selection like all these contracts are. But I think his total contract value is like 75 if he hits those performance escalators over those 4 years. But it's just astonishing to see a player of his caliber not get a contract right away in the off season. I mean, it's been a weird couple of years, and I think, like you said, the MLB is coming to the realization that we just need to sign the damn players when we can and stop pussyfooting around and just get it taken care of.
anything you want to add, Dave?
I mean, I agree with everything Max just said, and even more so than like signing people, like in going into spring training, or even at the start of spring training. Even more so than that, teams that sign these players halfway through the season, like the Cubs did with Kimbrel, like there's a lot that goes into it other than, oh, this is a closer that's been pretty dominant the last couple of years. We have a pretty good catcher in Wilson Contreras. Everything will be awesome. There's a lot that goes into it. I mean, Max knows better than I can, but that pitcher and that catcher need to be on the same page. I mean, I know we keep on talking about the Cubs, but that's just my team.
Well, there.
Uh, it's it, it's like how Ross basically had to catch with Lester because him and Contreras or him and whatever that fuckface who we had during the World Series run, um, they just couldn't align. There's a relationship that needs to be built between the pitcher and the catcher, and having that happen, and it takes time, and it needs to happen going into spring training, not what halfway through the year.
Yeah, well, coming from my perspective as when I pitched, your catcher needs to know what you would want to throw in a certain situation so that you're not shaking the guy off every 5 seconds, going, no, I don't want a slider in this situation, or I don't want a changeup in this situation, or I don't want a four-seam fastball. You've got to build that relationship, and the catcher has to be on the same wavelength as you, because there's so many different situations when you're on the mound that if the catcher calls the wrong pitch and you go along with it because you think the catcher knows what they're doing, it can end up where you give up a game-winning home run, or you can give up a double or a triple in a crucial situation, or you could walk a batter or go too far in the count and burn all your pitches. I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into it, especially when it comes to the pitcher-catcher relationship, that a lot of people don't think about. And you need that time to build that relationship with that specific catcher so that they know what the best pitch is for what that situation is. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be successful. So those times are crucial in spring training and even in off-season workouts. I mean, a lot of these guys will go hang out with a catcher and go just kind of work on what they prefer in certain situations versus what they don't want to be throwing, what their weakest pitch is, what their best pitch is, what their out pitch is. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, and some of these guys have, 5-6 pitches to go to, maybe even 7 depending on the type of pitcher. If you look at some of the Asian pitchers, they've got an arsenal. I mean, they don't just throw your four-seam fastball, slider, curve, changeup. They've got screwballs. They've got everything. It's ridiculous when you start factoring in each individual's pitcher's repertoire. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that one.
Even that hot damn gyro ball.
Yeah.
That Daisuke Matsuzaka was throwing when he was at the Red Sox, and it seemed like it was getting Yankee spatters out left and right. But go ahead, Dave.
Just to even to go off of what Max said about you waving off pitches because you are not on the same wavelength. It's even more important in 2020 with pace of play Manfred in charge. You only have so long to throw that pitch, and you keep on waving them off. It's like, well, this is the pitch I have to throw, and I would have rather thrown one I previously off earlier, but we just don't have time to go through the progression anymore.
Well, and then you got to factor in sign stealing too. I mean, if you're putting all your signs out there really quick, it's easy for teams like the Stros or Red Sox to go and steal your pitches. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. I mean, you have to be quick with it, and you have to be concise, and you need to be confident in what pitch you're sending your pitcher, and the pitcher needs to be confident in what you're calling so that it's fast. And a lot of it comes down to pace on the mound. I mean, if you don't have a good pace, if it's choppy, you become robotic. You become you don't have faith in your pitches. I mean, you need a good, solid pace of play on the mound if you're a pitcher. And if you have a catcher that's calling a good game for you, that helps that immensely.
That's why I love watching a guy like Mark Burley pitch, just because of his pace. And it seems like I bet there were a lot more games where Burley was closer to 2 hours pitching than 3 hours pitching, just because of his pace. But
as a Cubs fan, I completely agree. I obviously hate the White Sox with a burning passion. Sorry, Derek, if you ever listen to this, but Burley is a player I always loved to watch pitch. He played the game the right way, and even like a player like Verlander these days, that kind of does the same thing. There's not a lot of waiting around. He gets the ball, has that relationship with his catcher. They're on the same wavelength. Nods, throws the pitch. it there's just I have no problem with a long baseball game, but when I watch a baseball game, I'm at the ballpark having a few beers. Like I'm there for the day, but I'm not your standard baseball fan.
Exactly. And like you say, I don't mind a long game. It's just you mind it when a guy's just standing there and he shakes off 3, 4 pitches in a row, and it's like, okay, then what do you want to throw? You want to underhand toss it? But you know.
Well, that's when you call the beer vendor over because you got time to order a beer.
Well, where I go, you got to walk to it. But all right, let's.
I know a guy.
Oh, you know a guy. But
I actually know some of that. I know one of my buddies works at the Lugnuts baseball stadium, so it helps.
All right, let's move on. Let's move back to college football. But
Boo.
Only because you're a Kansas fan. I understand why. But
you know what? Screw you,
let's
Eric.
talk about. No, thank you. But let's go to a topic that has been brought up probably, especially in the last 5 years. Is there too many bowl games? You have your ones that say, "Shut up and just enjoy it football while you can," because you're going to have those dog days of summer that you're wishing for it. And then you have on the other side people that are like, do we really have to have this many games? I mean, do I really want to watch Buffalo and Alabama Birmingham play on December 16th? But, Max, since you're the Kansas fan and this past decade wasn't very good to you, where do you lie on the too many bowl game issue?
Yes. Yes.
That didn't answer the question at all.
I know. Yes, there are far too many bowl games. I mean, yeah, I don't want to spend my Saturday afternoon watching the Old Roy Bowl versus, a D3 school versus a D1 school. I don't care. All I want is...
Well, that's impossible to happen, so that's weird.
I understand it's impossible to happen, but that's the way it feels. I mean,
did you just say the Old Roy Bowl?
Yeah, the Old Roy Bowl. I don't want to watch the Maxi Pad Bowl. I don't want to watch. I don't care. I don't care about any of that shit. Just give me a college football playoff, and let's see the best. 8 to 12 teams battle it out, and then everything else is just non-existent. I mean, I don't care about college football enough to watch bowl games. I care enough about it to watch the college football playoffs if it was a better product. We're kind of in this weird in between where we've got how many actually, if somebody could look it up, how many bowl games are out there currently? 21? That's
41. I just
41. That's too many. That's 41 too many. Factoring it.
I know that's the reason I always have you on this show, Jerry. Keep going, Max.
That's just entirely too many. I mean, us as a nation, we don't have the attention span for 41 bowl games and then the college football playoffs. I can understand if we've got like 5 major bowls for, the runner-ups to the college football playoffs. That would be interesting. Kind of like a consolation bracket. And then have 8 teams in the college football playoffs and then run it that way. That would be interesting. That would be able to hold the nation's attention. That would bump up viewer ratings. It's just, who wants to watch every individual bowl? It becomes so segmented and regionalized when you have that many bowls that it doesn't hold or garner any attention for the majority of the nation. So
if Keith was here, he'd want to fist fight you right now.
I know.
But in that turn, I'll turn it over to Jerry. Where do you lie on the too many bowl game issue?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There is far too many. I'm a little bit different than Max on that front. I enjoy some of them, like the New Year's Six. I really enjoy those. I think those are a staple of basically just New Year's Day. It's like you have college football day around on New Year's Day. So, in all honesty, what I would do is I would just keep the New Year's Six around and then have the college football semifinals a couple days before that, and then the college football playoff. just because there's no point in having 41 bowl games with. I think I saw like there was a whole bunch of no name teams that I haven't heard of in forever that were playing in like the Cheez-Its Bowl or whatever. And it's like I don't care about that game. I won't care about it. It's like give me Alabama, Michigan. Yeah, I'll watch that game. That's a good game. But give me like San Diego State versus like I don't know like Washington State or something like that. It's like I don't care. I'm not gonna watch it.
Not a fan of the chicken noodle soup, the Campbell's chicken noodle soup bowl.
I am not.
Okay, Dave, where do you lie on the too many bowl game issue?
So I just counted this. There are 22 different games in the FCS playoff, and there are 26 in the Division Two playoff. That's 26. That's 22 or 26 opportunities for bowl games. We don't need like if we want if all these companies need to make money and sponsor these football games. There's your chance. Expand the playoff, make each different football game a different bowl, and like the old Roy game, the old Roy Bowl can be a round one game, leading you up to like say a semifinal of the Rose Bowl, and then like you just each one is a different site sponsored by somebody else, and that's how you can get these bowl games instead of having 41 not 41 meaningless, but about what 30 meaningless games. And this way they're all meaningful. These companies are still getting their money. You just start losing the Eastern Michigan, Western Kentucky Community College game.
Well, here's the other thing that you got to take into consideration. Aren't most of these bowl games money losers for the universities in the first place? Because they have to buy X amount of tickets, they have to pay for all the different plane tickets and bus rides, and they have to have X amount of things for students and all this crazy crap. I think most of the bowl games are money losers for almost all of the universities. That's another thing that should be taken into consideration. That money could be put towards paying their players maybe, instead of paying for a bowl game that is meaningless in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it's just ridiculous that we have that many. I mean, what if the NFL had a system set up like that? Well, we're going to have the NFL playoffs, but then we're also going to have all these different bowl games between the other teams that didn't make the playoffs.
Oh, only the division winners get to make the playoffs, and then Minnesota, you barely lost to Green Bay. You gotta play Cleveland in the this random football game, but it's going to be played in Nashville.
Yeah, and you're going to have to pay for everything. For all the tickets, you're going to have to front everything.
We'll basically feed you while you're there, but everything else is on you.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous, the setup. I mean, it makes for an uninteresting setup. I mean, it's not
right.
fun. It's not an event.
I agree with you. I'm for expanding the playoff, and I'm not saying as big as I don't see how many seeds are here because they have so many different. But like, I'm not saying expand it as big as like the Division II football playoff, but I think we can expand it more than 4, like Max said, 8, 16 teams, and give the smaller schools like Western Michigan from a few years ago the opportunity in there, and then we get rid of these 41 sorry, old Roy, but you just don't get your bowl game anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's pointless. I mean, there's probably no money to be made on these things in the first place, especially when you get down towards like the 30th to 41st bowl. I mean, they're all inconsequential, and they don't generate the revenue that you would probably expect for the money that you have to fork over to get an advertisement or get a sponsorship, and then it's just a money loser for the universities. I mean, it's a lose-lose for everyone, and it could be a lot better. I mean, just look at the product that's turned out for the NCAA tournament. Yes, there are 64 teams, but every game is a must-watch game. I mean, what the NCAA tournament for basketball has done is turned it into one of the best times of the year for any sports fan. Even if you're not a college basketball fan, It is the most entertaining time of the year. I mean, why can't NCAA football do the same?
Right. But like on top of that, like even like the 1 versus 16, like sure there's only been one, but that game's still always exciting to watch.
Because that 16 team,
Like
that 16 seed team always plays their heart out. That's the phenomenal thing about that. Sure, their
exactly.
chance of winning is slim to none, but still we turn in.
If you want to say there's a meaningless game in the tournament, it's the 16 team playing game. If you really don't want to watch that game, I usually don't. Okay, but it's so exciting. I also hate to use old boy Mike Leach as a reference right here, but he has this whole video clip about how high school. I'm gonna summarize it. In high school, we have a playoff. In Division 3, there's a playoff. Division 2, there's a playoff. Then he starts doing his whole abbreviation thing. FCS, there's a playoff. But Division 1, the highest level of college football, I don't know if there was a playoff at the time that he said this, barely has a playoff. The NFL has a playoff. Why is Division 1 football so the highest level of Division 1 football? Why is it so superior that it needs to have a different system than every level of football from Pee Wee to the NFL?
Yeah, it's just asinine in my opinion. I mean, I could go on for days and days and days about this, but nothing's going to change unless the NCAA and their whole governing system realizes that they're just doing it for a cash grab, and that's all it really is. I mean, nothing more than a cash grab.
The NCAA is a sham.
Yeah.
I mean, agreed as a cash grab. That's why I'm like, make each part of the playoff a sponsored game, and there's your cash.
Yeah. It's simple enough to do. I mean, sure, we could sit here and fix it ourselves, but the guys that are in charge of all this stuff won't fix it because they're rolling in the dough. They're getting paid the big bucks for the old Roy Bowl, the Tampon Bowl, the Sam Service Bowl. I mean, everything. It's just stupid.
I mean, the NCAA is the most corrupt sports organization, second only to FIFA.
Facts. Complete facts there.
While we're on the topic of college football, have you guys heard the dude on Twitter that does impeccable Nick Saban and Ed Orgeron impersonations?
No, I have not.
No, but can you post that in the chat later so I can?
I can. The dude, he is absolutely amazing. He's starting to do cameos with it, where he'll do like a Nick Saban thing. He'll do Ed Orgeron. He does like Joel Osteen too. He does a Dabo.
How hard is it to do Ed Orgeron? Just don't say. Make sure what you're saying doesn't sound like what you're saying.
Yeah, but this guy's amazing.
I love me some Orgeron though. So like I don't mean to be like criticizing him. He's the perfect job to be for being the head coach of a Louisiana football team though.
All right, from one hot button issue to another. Instant replay.
No, jeez. I need a re-up first.
Where's my bottle at?
Where's my bartender at?
You get that tea yet, Jerry?
I can get it on the stove.
But instant replay. At the heart of it, when it came in first with the NFL, it was to basically make sure that you get any obviously wrong calls on the field correct. And when they introduced it all those years ago, I was, from what the spirit of instant replay was supposed to be, I was behind it. Because, yeah, if there's a blatantly wrong call, then you should be able to fix it. But now it seems like anything that's ticky-tack and whatnot, and they just look, well, the previous player is under review. And now it seems like it makes the games disjointed, and, it takes all the air off the balloon of the excitement of the game, and I'm interested in get the thoughts of you guys to see how do you feel about it as well. Dave, let's start with you.
I'm very get off my lawn in this when it comes to sports. I'm very old school. I'm very traditional. When it comes to instant replay, the idea behind it I love because like you want to get the calls right. Before I continue there, first off, the this new you can challenge for football, for example, you can challenge pass interference is utter ridiculous. It's the first time you, you're challenging a subjective play,
It's a
which
it's a
which is ridiculous.
it's a crock is
It,
what it is.
I mean, they never overturned it, so they should just do with it next year. But it needs to be clear cut if you're going to overturn it. I'm also from the mindset of I forget who said this. I want to say it was Bill Parcells, but somebody probably knows and can correct me. If you're in a bar with 50 people and 50 people in all 50 people think you should overturn it, then you overturn it. It's not well. I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like this is overturnable. I'm from the mindset you need to be 100% confident that you got the call wrong to be able to overturn it. I could go on a soapbox, so I'll basically stop there. But it needs to, with 100% certainty that you're overturning that call because you made it wrong on the field.
I agree with you there.
Actually, I'll add one more thing.
Okay.
For a, if you, I think you need it, like kind of what they do in the playoffs in baseball, where it goes to New York, goes to someone that's not, who didn't make the call. So they're not very gung ho about, oh, I was right. I can't over, I can't tell people how wrong I was. It needs to be someone completely not officiating the game.
I mean, and to that point, like if you like on Fox and CBS and ESPN, you have these former VP of officiating or former referee that now consults, through the network about whether this call will be overturned or not. And to your point, like Major League Baseball, the call needs to go to New York. Basically, you had where basically the vice president of officiating is on standby because I mean who else can? I mean, who would be better to determine basically if this play should be overturned, not according to the rule? Because, like you said, if you sit, this replay official could say, "Oh yeah, well you can see clearly it was out before that the ball that his arm was down." But then if you have a different replay official in another game that says, "No, the arm was down," and it could almost, if you put them side by side, I promise you those two people more than likely would have two different opinions if they won't talk to each other. So I agree with you.
Agree. You can continue. If you're not done, you can keep
Oh
on
no,
going.
go ahead. I was finished.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like like doing the whatever time zone you're in, the 1 p.m. game for me, trying to do that might be a little difficult. Even the 4:30 game, but the national televised games and the playoffs, there's no reason why there can't be somebody else. I know we're sticking to football when we're talking the wide range, but in general, if like during a time slot there's a lot of teams playing, it might be a little difficult. But in general, like the playoff national televised games, you should be able to go to someone independent from calling the game and be like, they review it. They can hear from the ref and it's like, this is what I saw. It's like, well, this is actually how I see it, and this is the call, and this is how, and we need to overturn this, and this is why.
Yeah, and see another thing too that kind of ticked me off, and Jerry, I want to bring you in for this point. But like when it comes to the NBA, like in the NBA, there's a thing also that what's it the 2 minute report, and like to me, why is that 2 minutes more important to the league to be transparent about than the other 46 minutes preceding it?
Yeah, I mean, as far as as far as where we're going, I think the main reason we're sticking to football here is the fact that football has it the most wrong. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think basketball's ruined it yet. I don't think baseball's ruined it yet. I don't watch enough hockey to really judge that. I don't even know if they have instant replay there. I'm not sure why they would.
They do have instant replay, but it's very specific of what you can do it. It's mainly you're challenging offsides and you're challenging goals for the most part.
Yeah.
And so it's like very clear cut. There's more that you can do than that, but it's very clear cut when you're challenging it. But even then, there's discrepancies. But sorry, my speech impediment. But in general, while NHL instant replay, like, it can be improved, it's nowhere. Well, they all can be improved, but football just has it the most wrong.
Well, yeah, football does have it the most wrong because it's open to that individual's interpretation of that specific rule at that given time, and sometimes outside forces might impact that a little bit. I mean, it's just there's a rule intent in football that makes it absolutely impossible to actually define what the rule's true intent was for, and it's everything's open for interpretation by each given party. I mean, a coach can interpret that rule one way, throw the challenge flag, and then the ref will interpret that rule in the replay a completely different way, and it'll go against the coach that threw the challenge flag. I mean, it's just a back-asswards way of actually doing replay. I mean, there needs to be clear and concise parameters for what that rule means so that we're not interpreting what a catch is. So we're not interpreting what, pass interference is. We're not interpreting if it was a malicious hit on a quarterback. We're not, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in a football team that really changes the dynamic of the game depending on how somebody interpreted that rule at that given moment. And it's crazy to think that you're sitting there listening to these experts come on CBS or Fox and give their interpretation of what that rule means, and then the ruling goes the complete opposite way, and they're just sitting there dumbfounded going, oh, I don't understand why they went that way. And then they try to backpedal and make justifications for why they called it that specific way, just saying, well, there must have not been enough evidence to overturn the call. It's a stupid way to go about it.
Was it Mike Carey in Super Bowl 50 that got like 3 replays in a row wrong, and basically CBS stopped going to him?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean there's a multitude of things. Like, first off, like, if we're gonna do, in general, there needs to be some accountability with the referees. Like, there's no reason you can't hire them full time and, after every game you meet with the head referee and go through your calls and kind of get it, and you're basically judged for your performance. It's no different than you watching tape as a football player and your coach chewing you out for you missing that block or making the wrong read on defense or throwing an interception when there's a wide open guy not far away. Also, the terminology, a football move. What the fuck is a football move?
It's an artist interpretation.
Exactly.
It's when you get on the field and start breakdancing. That's your football move.
If a football move isn't when you're leaning forward, you have possession of the ball, go to the ground, the ball pops out. Sorry, Eric.
But no,
don't worry, Vogel. I was about to go there as well.
But to me, the NFL needs to simplify their rules, because I feel like right now with the way the rules are, it seems like they're getting more and more complicated, and you can tell with these officials, it's more and more complicated for them to officiate and interpret the rules. Because, like you said, a football move, well, to this official, from what he gathered what a football move is, that could be catch, 2 steps, he's in. But now, this next official in another game, he said there, well, football move is a catch, 2 steps, and turn up the field. And It's just frustrating as a fan to sit there and see all these different interpretations of the rule. Where, like you said, Dave, hire these guys full time, train. All right, the NFL season ends first week of February. All right, from let's just say the third week of February until preseason. Train these guys on what their job is and what they're supposed to be looking for specifically. Hire them full time. But and to me also,
Right.
you gotta have, and I don't mean this in a mean way or anything, but honestly, these guys are 20, 30-year-old world class athletes. You can't have 60, 70-year-old guys trying to follow the action and keep up with them and expect them to get every last call right. Because, let's just be honest. We talk about father time of an athlete. Father time catches up with referees, too.
Right. I mean, to lay off your first point about the football move, not only at different games, you could have a catch on one sideline. They're like, oh, he made a football move forward. Um, Catch. Same thing happened on the other sideline. Different referee didn't make a football move. Incomplete pass. Like and they're like, oh, these referees are inconsistent. Not necessarily. That individual referee that is being consistent, but the team as a whole interprets things differently.
Exactly, yeah. 'Cause
Oh,
like you said, on one side, if it's on the line judge's side, and somehow he's the reason he makes the call, he could, like you said, he could interpret it as a catch. All right, where if you go on the other side, and the other referee, I can't remember who's on the other, but
right.
if he interprets, like you said, down the field, and all of a sudden he says, basically, you can put this, then it can almost be the same type of catch. And one says completion, one says incompletion, and you're like, what the hell are y'all doing? Y'all supposed to be out there and work together as a team and whatnot. And to me, I feel like if you want to do replay also, not only should the head official be there, but the official that made the original call, and then an official that was away from the play as well. That way, at
Right.
least okay, you get the consistency, like you say, as an officiating crew. Get where I'm coming from?
No, I know. I completely agree. Also on the the full time refs when you're saying like February on like trainings and what if you hire them full time, what are these referees doing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays since this is their full time job now? They why can't they meet with they can meet with somebody even if it's just like Skyping in or something. They meet with someone, go over the plays. They can hear out what they saw, then they get a rate. They get graded just like any player does.
All right.
I'm still on the mind of like I'm really old school. This is nowhere near perfect. Just nix it and make human error part of the game.
Well, and here's one of the other things that I've noticed, at least in the last round of the playoffs, that there was a second officiating crew on the sidelines doing kind of like a rules compliance enforcement thing and calling the refs on the field out on their bullshit and making sure that the right calls were being made. So I think that's a little bit of an implementation of a different system to help kind of make the rules a little bit more clear and concise. But I did notice that it kind of diminished the pace of play in the actual game itself. But it is a step in the right direction. I will give them credit for that.
Yeah, but to go back to Dave's original point also, basically, of either when you go towards having a fully either, and that's like I said on on a previous episode, where basically when I was talking about the college football playoff, either give me 1 and 2 or give me a full-fledged playoff. Where it goes to instant replay, it's either give me a system that you've actually sat there, actually put some detailed thought into, and then just somebody then throw something together and be like, okay, let's just put this together, put it out there, and hope that it works for the best. And when you see that it doesn't, you basically just twiddle your thumbs and say, well, works well enough for us, or just give me human error back. I mean, yeah, of course, it's going to suck that certain teams are going to be screwed out of games because, obvious calls won't be able to be reviewed. But I mean, I'd rather to me at the moment at this moment in time in the NFL, it's making me miss the days of human error. You know, just because you felt like the games weren't as disjointed as they are now. It's like I'd rather have the excitement for every play and then not have to worry about, well, they're going to go back and review this, and then all of a sudden it kills the flow of a drive and it kills the flow of a game, and you just lose interest. Jerry, I haven't heard from you for a minute, buddy. I mean, throw us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much covered everything I had to say. Um, the main thing I want to point out is with the whole pass interference rule they implemented this year because coaches pushed for it. I think a lot of the fact is whenever coaches challenge it, I think officials are still upset that they got that pushed through because the coaches quote unquote don't trust the officials to make the right call. So they've been punishing the coaches by I think maybe 2 or 3 of the coach challenged pass interference calls this year got overturned, if that many. Well,
Don't
whenever
think
it
it
went
was
to
any, honestly.
I think it was three.
I know whenever it went to New York, you had a much higher likelihood of it getting overturned. So I think that right there is just an implication of the refs. They are trying to stick it to the coaches, trying to get rules like that changed of stuff that's just based off of. It's just based off of judgment.
And see, like Dave's point earlier, if you hire these officials full time, and when you sit there and you review the tape of their game, and you realize, hey, there was a pass interference call, and he sat there and challenged it, and you said that it wasn't, and we clearly see where it is. All right, give us your explanation of why not, and depending on the explanation you get back, you either sit there and say, okay, then you basically just said it wasn't because you didn't feel like being showed up. So there got to be some kind of punishment there. And right now you just watching, especially NFL football, is just like it feels like the game's all about the officials, and that's
Well,
not why. And that's not why I tune in every Thursday, Sunday, Monday to watch.
well, part of the pass interference thing is there's not much you can like that, like reviewing that with them. There's not much you can do because it is such a subjective call. Pass interference isn't cut and dry like 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 a catch, which it isn't cut and dry as much as it should be, or as much as, oh, where's the ball marked? Where's his knee down? Was he out of bounds? Like these things are way more cut and dry than pass interference.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with you there. But it's even for I don't know. It to me it's just it it, it there's a lot that needs to be fixed, and there's a lot of obvious things that need to be. To me, it just take it out. Where pass interference can be challenged because you can, like I said, from what you see so far, they're not going to overturn it. So what's the point of even having it? But let's go from there, from one rant to another rant. We're debuting a new segment on this show called Max's Minute, where basically we give Max 1 minute to rant about anything that he wants. So Max, take your minute on your soapbox.
Okay, so welcome to my new segment. I hope you guys enjoy it. Here we go. All right, so we had the Eagles playoff game last weekend, and we had 2 things happen that were pretty monumental as far as quarterbacks. One, we had an instance where Carson Wentz, now it came out that he took himself out of the game due to a concussion, which I admire him for because that's really hard to do in a playoff game and of that magnitude. And he literally took himself out of the game because he realized he had a concussion. My hat's off to him for that. But on the other hand, we had Josh McCown take over under center for him, and he played the entire second half of that game with a torn hamstring. The dude literally removed his hamstring from the bone. That's how bad it was, and he went out there and competed. So here's what I'm thinking. Carson Wentz is going to need to go into the witness protection program because Philly fans are ridiculous. They're a rabid fan base that has no science, logic, or reason behind their thinking. So they're going to think this is a deliberate attempt by Wentz just being essentially a pussy. And they're going to hate him for it. He's going to have to find a new team. I mean, they're literally going to have to trade him because I think the Boo Birds will be out in full. There'll be death threats and all this crazy crap towards Carson Wentz due to the fact that he took himself out of a playoff game when his backup quarterback, a 40-year-old guy that never succeeded in the league really, went out there and played the entire second half with a torn hamstring. It's just ridiculous to think. I don't think he's going to be able to live it down in Philly, and he's going to seriously have to find a new team, which might be a good thing because I don't think Philly's going to be the best location for him in the first place. But that's my minute.
All right.
That was actually 1 minute and 55 seconds, in case you were wondering. But who's counting?
Apparently you are, Dave.
The fact that I had to. I'm sorry. But as someone that has had a concussion or two, the fact that Philly fans would make him like what's about to happen to him is incredibly ridiculous. Your head injuries you don't really recover
exactly
from.
And you get a limited amount of them. I've had concussions too, and that it definitely fucks with your head, and it changes the chemical makeup in your brain the more and more that you get. I mean, it's forced people to retire. It's made people kill themselves because they've had too many concussions. I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous to think that a fan base is going to be that hard on a quarterback for saving his health. I mean, honestly, he's putting himself in jeopardy every time he goes out there. If he has a concussion and he gets hit again, it could turn into a brain bleed. He could hemorrhage out without anyone knowing it, and that's the scary thing. And I think that these fans aren't going to take that into consideration. Yes, there were 2 major injuries on the field. One guy played through it. The other guy took himself out of the game. The guy that took himself out of the game made the right decision. He made a career decision.
Right. I mean, there's a couple. First, a couple things I want to say off that. First off, I mean, in the 1985 Bears, our punky QB known as McMahon, he claims that he does not remember winning the Super Bowl. Like, he has no recollection of it. Like, he knows that he did, but he doesn't have the memory. And there's nothing else to blame but concussions off that. I mean, maybe he would have got some sort of dementia, but he's not. Like, 1985 wasn't too long ago where we should be worried about, like, yeah, he's 60 years old. Like, sure, he's getting up there, but as of like 5 years ago, he didn't remember it. Is 55 really the age we start worrying about having no recollection of a significant event like that?
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, if you said he was 85 and starting to forget, then I would understand that. But the things that these guys put their brains through, I mean, it's like two vehicles doing a head-on collision at 30 miles per hour each. I mean, it's just the devastation is irreparable. I mean, you only get so many hits to your brain before it starts turning to mush. And honestly, you need to give your brain time to recover after a hit like that. And Carson Wentz did the right thing. No matter how anybody looks at it, he did the right thing.
100%. Also, we're also comparing I don't know how old Wentz is, let's just say 25, to a 40-year-old. Like, Wentz has his whole career to think about. Technically he has won a Super Bowl already, and he has the talent to win others. Is winning one playoff game worth that? And beyond football, is one game worth, being around for, like, I don't know if he has kids, but being there for the significant events in his kids and his family's life? coming from me, like I've had multiple concussions. I still play rugby, but I know this, like I understand the risks I'm doing. He understands, like big man, we didn't really know what the risks were behind it at the time. Wentz knows the repercussions, and he took himself out of the game. If the injuries were reversed, maybe Wentz plays through it, and he's like, you know what, I can be in a wheelchair, but I want to have memories, and McCown is the head is just something I'm not fucking around with. Like we don't know roles reverse what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a pretty good opening minute, right?
Sorry,
a minute it turned into about 6 or 7 of them, but hey,
sorry about that.
All right, let's move on to the NFL coaching hires. You've got McCarthy in Dallas. You've got, of course, we've talked about already, Ron Rivera in Washington. You've got, looks like it's going to be Rule to the Panthers. And
Yeah.
out of left field, you've got Joe Judge as the new head coach of the New York Giants. Jerry, give me your impressions of the on the current NFL hires.
Well, for starters, I'd like to say I went over.
Yes, you did.
So whoever I say for the Browns, just know they're not going to be in the coach. So
Call McDaniels. Say it's McDaniels.
So whoever I say there will probably be wrong, but
Jason Garrett.
I'm interested by the coaching hires. I didn't expect McCarthy to end up in Dallas, but once it came out, Jerry was looking for head coaches with coaching experience. McCarthy was the one that immediately stood out, just because he's the one who has the best pedigree of experienced coaches. They also brought in Lewis to interview. I think those were the only two they really interviewed, and Jones fell in love with McCarthy, and they got their guy. I think that'll be a good hire for Dak's sake. I think it'll really help Dak take his game past where it even was this year. Maybe not stat-wise, but just him as a QB. This is probably the most talented roster McCarthy has ever dealt with, even going back to his times in Green Bay, because he actually has an elite running back. He never really had that in Green Bay. He has a talented defense and a offensive line that had a down year this year, but they're still one of the better O-lines in the league. So, I mean, this is just overall a really good team. He can make some noise next year. As far as Rule in Carolina, there's not really a whole lot on his staff yet. I know he's bringing his DC from Baylor, and they're looking at Joe Brady as offensive coordinator, last I heard. So you got that going there. He's the most wild card one, even more than a Joe Judge, because while he has head coaching experience at the college ranks, he's only spent 1 year in the NFL as the Giants' offensive line assistant, or it was maybe the offensive line coach. He spent 1 year there before he went to college. So he didn't have a whole lot of experience at the NFL level, whether it's position coach, coordinator, or a head coach. So this could either be an absolute home run hire for Carolina, or it could be a massive flop. That's just where it's at, is that. And then Joe Judge in New York. This one is, I did not see it coming at all. So from what I heard, the reason that Judge got the job is he interviewed for McDaniels. So McDaniels was originally supposed to interview on Sunday night, and then Judge was supposed to interview the next day. But the interview with McDaniels got pushed back until Wednesday since the Patriots lost, and Joe Judge went first, and McDaniels didn't even get a shot at the New York job. So I don't really know. Mara really hopes he better not have struck out, because that would have been 3 strikeout hires in a row, and Shermer, who I think should have been given more time, and McAdoo, and now Joe Judge. I like seeing another special teams coach get a job in the league. It's really nice. I forget who the last one was. Last one of it is successful, John Harbaugh, obviously. And then as far as Cleveland, it looks like it's down to McDaniels, Saleh, and San Francisco. It came out this morning that it looks like he's still in the running, and then Stefanski in Minnesota. So it makes sense they aren't moving on a decision right now.
They're saying the Bills' offensive coordinator is a wild card still.
Yeah, the only reason it looks like Saleh is still in it is because they interviewed who his GM of choice would be. That's the Colts assistant GM. I don't have his name off the top of my head, but they were interviewing him today.
It's Ed Dodds.
Yeah, him. Yeah, they interviewed him today for a potential GM job, and that's who he would bring over as his GM. So it looks like it's down to those three. So they could make a decision after today's game. If Sal loses and he's their guy, they could make a move on him and get him. If they want Stefanski, then they're waiting on the outcome, whether anything happens with him today or not. So it honestly just depends on who they feel their guy is and when he loses out of the playoffs, or if it's McDaniels and they can make the move sometime next week probably.
They can also get Jason Garrett, but nobody's saying that.
It could be Jason Garrett, but you never know.
I just like messing with Richard. How surprised are you also that it looks like you guys are going to keep your offensive coordinator as well?
I am absolutely shocked. I fully expected him to get a job, and I think it's a travesty to decide a head coaching job right now.
That plays more into why aren't more black coaches getting head coaching gigs in the NFL? It's ridiculous. There's a lot of good talent out there, and I think EB could really lead the field in that. He's in my opinion, a great leader of men, and that's what some of these teams needed, and they're not giving him a fair shake.
I mean, he does. He has only been an offensive coordinator for 2 years, and Reed does call the plays. But I agree. Has no one paid attention to Patrick Mahomes the last 2 years?
Well, exactly, and then look at what he's done with the running back position, because the guy knows running backs. He was a running back in the NFL, and he's been a coach for quite some time. I mean, who really thought Damian Williams was going to step in and be a somewhat serviceable running back? Who would have thought LaShawn McCoy would have came in and been a somewhat serviceable running back at this point in time in his career? I mean, he takes nothing and turns it into something. I think he's just a great leader, and there's some teams out there like the Giants, like the Browns, like the Panthers that just need a good leader of men out there, and they didn't go for it, and it's a shame. And I think the only reason why EB's been entertained as a head coach is because of the Rooney Rule, which is a true shame. I mean, it's just the best coach should get the job, and we've got guys like Matt Rule and Joe Judge in there getting.
Yeah, the Judge one's the biggest one I have an issue with, him getting the job.
Yeah, I mean, we've got guys like that getting the jobs over a guy like Eric Bieniemy that should be getting a shot. It's just it sucks to see. I think there should be some things brought up in the off-season meetings between the owners, because there are good candidates out there. Just because they're black doesn't mean that they shouldn't get a shot at as a head coach in the NFL. And it doesn't mean that you should bring them in just to satisfy the Rooney Rule and then hire somebody else that's been around and proven that they have failed, or they don't have what it takes to coach anymore, or it's just an out of left field hire like it is with the Joe Judge hire. I mean, it's ridiculous. I hate seeing it. Eric Bieniemy deserved a shot, and I think any team that didn't hire him this coaching carousel time, they're idiots.
Hey, who knows, Max? Maybe if KC wins out and Reed goes out on top with the Super Bowl ring, if he wants to retire this year, Bieniemy could have a head coach job after all.
There's a part of me that really hopes that Reed sticks around for some time, and when he does retire, he's going to pass the reins over to Eric Bieniemy. There's a big part of me that feels that way, but I feel like Reed's the type of guy that's going to say, "Hey, I've got my quarterback. Let's see how many rings I can get before I really want to retire," and then he'll pass over the reins.
Yeah.
I mean, I going into the offseason, I thought Stefanski and Bieniemy were the two top candidates, and best case scenario, one of them gets a job, which I think is ridiculous. Two actual candidates. I've been on the horse and will die on the hill that Dave Tobin deserves a head coaching job, but that's neither here nor there. For my personal bias, I guess, I'm glad Bieniemy hasn't isn't getting a job because I'm hoping we can get the Bears can get Kafka as our new offensive coordinator.
No,
Stay away from
no,
Kafka.
he's gonna
He's
be
a,
our
he, he
OC
was born.
once Bieniemy takes over the team.
Well, he was born and raised in Chicago. Went to Northwestern. He familiarity with a similar offense to what we have. What we have, it makes sense, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's just a hope. Um, I, should we can continue the show how you want it to go, Eric, but I just wanted to make that real quick.
Well, Dave, I actually wanted to come back to you because in talking with you during the week, I know you've had some skepticisms about Mike McCarthy being hired in Dallas. Elaborate on those.
So at the beginning, I was completely against it. I thought it was a bad hire. Like you have a Hall of Fame for, to be Hall of Fame winning quarterback for what 10 years, probably more, and you have one Super Bowl ring. But I do enjoy how he has been putting his staff together. I think I like Jerry said. I think he'll help Dak evolve as a passer. I think Kellen Moore is good for Dak and will help him progress as a passer. I'm a huge Mike Nolan fan, so I think that defense will look how it should be. What Chris Richard been announced if he's coming back or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, that will be that will have a lot to do with the hire. I think I don't think he should call. I don't think Mike McCarthy should call plays while he's there. I think this hire should be more of, for lack of a better term, he's the CEO of the football team, and he delegates the coordinators to run the things. If that's how it works, I think it's a good hire because he was willing to butt. Well, I think to a point he's kind of he cut. It's hard to say since Green Bay doesn't really have an owner, but he was willing to butt heads with Rodgers to kind of do things his way. Um, so it's hard to say how him and Jerry will get along, but as long as he lets his coach and doesn't get too involved in the offense, and he just kind of be the CEO and helps Dak progress as a passer, I think it's a good hire. But I have a feeling he's going to have too much in that offense, and Green. And while he hasn't had a running back like Zeke, it's almost like Green Bay did what they can to not run the ball.
And when our Jerry, that's here with us now, told me a couple of weeks ago that it looked like McCarthy is the favorite to go to Dallas to replace Garrett, immediately I was like, oh, great, here we go, another retread. But then looking at what McCarthy has done in his time off since he's been let go from Green Bay and how he's basically studied himself and has adopted analytics and whatnot, a part of me believes that on one of your points about how he's got complacent at the end, I feel like that if he sticks to actually what he's been saying since he's been hired about how this is going to be an analytics driven team and whatnot, I feel like this hire right now is a good hire, but it could either be a home run hire or my fears of retreads could come to light. I mean, because and to the other point that you had where you said that in Green Bay he got complacent. I saw a story on NBC Sports last night, matter of fact, about how the biggest reason people felt like he got complacent in Green Bay is because there's no true owner to oversee him, and so basically he got to do things his way to the point until he got fired. Well, now he's going to the complete opposite extreme of it, where the owner's right there. He's going to be in your back pocket every day. And if that's truly what happened towards the end of his tenure in Green Bay, then at least that same thing won't happen because Jerry's going to be right there. And if you get complacent, he's going to be right there to let you know. And you're going to have to fix it or you're gone. But so, like I said, the jury's still out on this hire. But go ahead.
I agree there, and I think the biggest thing Dallas needs is a culture change. Like, more often than not, you have, you know, I'm not putting judgment on Zeke for this, but like Zeke putting himself in the wrong situations. You have the Randall Gregory's of the world. There's too many times that these things happen, and if there's one thing that the Super Bowl aside that McCarthy did is he came in and created a culture, and and I think that's the biggest thing. Like him, I think the Dallas hire and the Washington hire are very similar. Is what the biggest thing they need. I mean, Washington needs more than just a culture change, but that's the big thing that they're getting put in there. So we're going to create a culture that's not going to be where like just kind of like everything goes, but we'll go 8-8 in Jason Garrett. Like I said, the jury's still
in Washington.
What?
No more ping pong tables in Washington. Oh yeah,
right.
He took those out.
Right. They're going in to create a culture. And the jury's still out, like you said. McCarthy's saying all the right things. He kind of at his press conference he kind of looked like Chris Farley and Tommy Boy, but I think he can create the culture, and if he obviously will let Nolan take care of the defense for the most part, let Kellen Moore take care of the offense. And your special team coordinator is a good hire. I think he's doing all the right things, but the jury's still out.
Right. Jerry, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts because, like I said, you were the one that broke it to me about McCarthy being hired. So let me have him.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I think it has a really good opportunity to pan out as a good hire. Like I mentioned, if McCarthy is true about improving the way he was coaching, changing some of his ways, I think Dallas has a very good chance to improve on a lot of the stuff that he lacked towards the end of his tenure in Green Bay and really improve. And a lot of it fit to what Dallas can play. Like, I think they need to have quite a bit of play action, run Zeke quite a bit. Dallas is one of the few teams where I'll advocate for running the football just because you have Zeke in that backfield. And getting that play action going, I think that's key to getting that offense going. Then you got Amari if he comes back. I'm not sure what their plan on that is. You got Gallup there. You have some decent receivers there, and he has enough talent where he can get that offense going. And then they have a fairly good defense as well. So I mean, that can get going as well. And you have a very scary team in the NFC.
According to Stephen Jones, Dak and Amari are priority A1 to get back next season.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on if they actually get him back or not. I know you can say they're a priority, but your actions speak louder than your words.
Don't pay your wide receivers.
No. Pay them.
Just no.
The top 10 wide receivers have 0 Super Bowls combined.
Yeah, usually, I mean, to a point, I agree with you there, but look what happened the first half of the season last year for Dallas with no Amari Cooper, and then at least look what he's given you since he's been there most games. As far as Dallas goes,
what are you yearly salary? What figure are you thinking for Amari?
I would pay him top 10 money. Just because. I mean, look at his age. Look what you had to give. I mean, right now, if you don't pay him, you let him walk. You gave Oakland a first round pick for what, a year and a half in Amari. I mean, that truly doesn't justify sending that first. So,
I mean, I agree with you there. I guess it depends on how. I'm actually. It depends on if you re-sign Dak and how much he actually commands, to be how much are you that you can pay Dak? I mean Amari, because I'm okay with Robinson's contract on the Bears, but we have a quarterback on a rookie deal. So that's like you can pay wide receivers when your quarterback is on a rookie deal, but when your quarterback is making what he's supposed to command $30 million a year in a salary cap sport, that's where paying the wide receiver becomes problematic.
Right. I agree with you there.
For the top 10 paid wide receivers still in the playoffs, can you name them right now, Dave?
I don't. Still in the playoffs?
Still in the playoffs right now.
Top paid. Thielen, one of them.
Mm-hmm. He's one.
I have to think of who's in the playoffs right now. Why can't I do this right now? Hold on.
I can.
I
can.
I have to think.
Devontae Adams is one.
Devontae Adams. Is Diggs also on it?
Diggs is not.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
The other two are on the AFC side.
Is Hill
yes.
paid yet?
Hill does have a contract, but he's not in the top 10.
Not until next year.
Hopkins is one, yes.
You said AFC side?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get the last one. Max knows exactly who it is.
Oh, it's Watkins.
Yeah, it is.
Yep.
But like I said, Mahomes is still on his rookie deal. Watson is still on his rookie deal. I think Green Bay is losing
has
tonight.
Rodgers and Minnesota has Kirk.
Well, I actually do think Minnesota wins tonight, but I don't think Green Bay wins tonight. Or wins tomorrow. Wins. I think Seattle wins.
In Lambeau?
I got Green Bay winning as well.
In Lambeau, with the conditions the way that they are, I see Seattle getting their asses waffle stomped.
I wouldn't be surprised if Green Bay won. I'm picking Seattle in a close game, and I would be beyond shocked if it's a waffle stomp.
I like how we've collectively hit our target for waffle stomping. Instead of me just doing it, you've all chipped in, and we've hit our collective goal of plus or minus 6.
Plus or minus 6, he says.
It's cool. We'll just have to get on again and waffle stomp the shit out of it.
And that's what I bet. I said we were going to hit our over on waffle stomping, and Jerry thought we were going to go under. So,
once you say waffle stomp, it kind of continues to waffle stomp.
Oh dear, I'm gonna stop this train while we can.
He's gonna waffle stop this train while we can.
But Dave, Jerry, it's been fun having y'all on, and definitely come back and see us.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah.
Max, I'll see you next episode.
Yeah, have a good one. This is fun.
You do the same. That's going to be our episode, everyone. Once again, you can catch us on Facebook on our page, Sports Fanatics United. Catch us on Twitter at Forever Fanatics. You can also catch us on YouTube where our sims are at Sports Fanatics United as well. Until next time, I'm very good.